We're back, people, and today we're breaking a film on Chop Robinson, Miami Dolphins edge defender, versus the Buffalo Bills. And this was probably his best game, pass rushing wise. I think throughout the whole season, he created like a decent amount of pressure throughout the game. Got his first career sack. Was really one of the only bright spots defensively. Like, it wasn't the best game for the defense, but Chop really went out there and did some good things. Still only won in like his usual way with speed to power, that type of situation. But you really got to see him do a little bit of a mix up. Going versus a tough battle in Dion Dawkins, who's actually a very good player and usually gives a lot of our defensive ends and edges struggle, but Chop gave him a run for his money, created multiple pressures throughout the game. Still some things he needs to work on for sure, but it was nice to see him actually get his first sack, and I just feel like he's been developing a little more nicely as the season's gone on. So overall, feel pretty good when it comes to him in this game. So shout out Chop for at least, showing a little bit more. Progressing, because I know people are just like calling him a bust. I wasn't the biggest fan of the pick. I like Chop. I think there's still potential. I do think he was more of just like a next year type of player, but it is nice to see him start to pick up and improve as the season is going on. Here's his first sack versus Dion Dawkins, kind of just winning in his normal way, where they outside release, or this guy outside releases, so kind of gives him like this chip if he tries to win too far to the outside. But he attacks it outside half. Boom, gives a stab there with that right foot, gets into the chest, so he uses his speed to power like usual, kind of creates that push into Josh Allen, so you can see just like, he's a very low leverage player when he's able to get into the chest and catch these offensive linemen off balance, because his speed can create issues for them, and uses that to create separation into him. Boom, forces Josh Allen off his spot because he pushes the left tackle back into him one-on-one, then is able to peel off. Good job by Campbell and the linebackers and Ramsey here to kind of take away that throwing lane that Allen was trying to go to, and then Chop's able to finish with his first sack. So cool to see him get his first sack. He had some pressures throughout the year, but was never quite able to finish. So this is a nice sign. He's kind of been, since you've lost Phillips and Sealer, he's kind of been your most consistent pass rusher, which you still want to see him get better and develop his repertoire, because I do think he needs more pass rush move, and he needs to work on his balance and things like that. But it was nice to see some of these things. This play was a little bit weird. I think the left tackle was laid off the ball, and Chop kind of slips here, but you can just see the speed. So, like, if your offensive lineman is late, he's going to make you pay for it. Like, I don't know what Dion Dawkins was doing in that specific situation, but you can just see the burst, even slipping, because Chop's kind of slips here. The left tackle doesn't react. I don't think he knew the ball was snapped, so he's late. But look at this explosiveness, even out of the slip, to still get after Allen to force that quick throwaway. You can see it from this angle, too. So, like, loses his balance a little bit, but just, boom, burst speed. Close that gap so fast. Dip underneath the hands there from Dawkins. I guess he just wasn't ready for that, and Chop shows off that ability. And gets a nice pressure. QB hit. Was actually one of the, like, I think on the first drive of the game, so it was nice to see Chop come out pretty strong and help get a stop on a third down situation. And, they didn't have too many stops throughout the game, so that was a nice thing to see. So, getting after the quarterback, using that speed. Just want to see it translate better in all types of situations, as you'll see as this game goes on. Like, more speed to power, creating a push. Kind of tries to look like he's going to win on the outside here. Like, he's got the burst off the ball, obviously. His first step, he's kind of where he's at his best. First step quickness. You can tell, if you look at the other O-linemen, they're a lot... seems like they're just, like, getting engaged with the guy, or being patient, like the right tackle versus Agba. Doesn't seem like anyone anywhere else is pretty much scared. You can tell Dawkins is kind of playing on his back foot because he's a little bit threatened by Chop's speed. So, like, offensive linemen do have to play him in a respectful way, because if they don't, he'll make him play with that athleticism. Looks like he gives a little bit of a flash there with his hands and then try to dip underneath. That doesn't work, but it is nice to see him adjust, boom, use his hands, create some separation there, hand fight, then get back up underneath. Because even though, and then look at Dawkins kind of swipes his hands down. He uses a little bit of snatch and trap technique. He still just throws his body into him and then pushes him back into Allen. Forces that ball to get checked down. Dolphins make a tackle. So just like another pressure created there. Chop sticking with it. Not going to the ground here because he did get snatched and trapped a couple times in this game. The other one he fell down. This one he was able to stay on his feet and still force a pressure on the quarterback. So that was nice to see an adjustment there. This time winning on a little bit of an inside move, throwing the offensive lineman off balance. You can see that first step off the ball, explosive, and then he instantly attacks that inside. You can see, look what he does to the left tackle here. His feet get clunky. He's off balance. Doesn't play with, a good base. And Chop is just throwing him off balance with his moves. Because he hits him with that boom, that jab, and then another step there. Get him off balance, and then work into speed to power on top of it. And kind of went on an inside path this time to create some pressure. Force Allen to throw it away quickly again. Chop was clearly the best pass rusher on this rep as well. Kind of just winning his one-on-one. So it's nice to see, even though he's still kind of using some of the same moves, he's at least, before he is getting engaged, he's at least mixing up tempo of things. He's using different footwork. He's trying to, at least sell different pass rush moves. So you can tell that he's at least developed in that area, which is, I think, a nice surprise. Something that I think is shown better in the past 2 weeks, specifically against the Cardinals and the Bills. And that's another pressure created on Allen. Look at him create that push on Dawkins, getting back into his face. So you can tell that development is coming along nicely. I think that's the nicest sign when you can have a player that clearly is looking better in certain areas as the season goes on as a young guy. It makes me feel better about his long-term development, really actually taking the next step. This ball's coming out so quick, it doesn't really matter. But even reps like this where he doesn't really get a pressure or anything, it's nice to see him work some foot fire. He's showing some wiggle underneath. He gets a little boom, little shake. His foot fire there. He's just trying to throw the offensive lineman off balance. Look at Dawkins look at Dawkins' base compared to everyone else. And Dawkins is a good offensive lineman. Chop doing this is putting him in an uncomfortable position. And then he gets engaged and tries, swipe, get to the outside. Ball's coming out, so it doesn't really matter. He potentially could have got a pressure if the ball was hold for an extra half second or something. But it just is nice to see Chop throwing different things before getting engaged, showing off a little bit of wiggle, a little athleticism, instead of just completely relying on just running down the middle of someone every single time, because that's what he was doing in the past. He was still doing speed to power stuff, but it was just straight off the ball and just run straight into the guy without doing anything mixed up with your footwork and things like that. That was a pleasant sign to see. Here's one where he ended up on the ground. He didn't end up on the ground as much in this game, but I do think this was his, now if he takes this inside path, which I would have liked to see, would have been awesome, but I do believe, since there is a stunt happening on this side, that he actually does his job. I'm sure Chop would have loved to maybe attack inside with how much space was created here, but I believe his job was to attack, get upfield as fast as you can, try to dip underneath. Now he loses balance and you don't want to see that, but I think he actually does help get this pass deflection because he creates, this open lane for this guy to get right in the face, Deshaun Hand in the face of the quarterback and get that pass deflection. So he does do his job. It is nice to see him understand exactly what he's supposed to be doing, but maybe show a little bit better balance, because I do think this is a problem of his, is when he does try to win with speed and bend around the edge, he ends up on the ground, because he clearly has that first step quickness to speed. I think sometimes he plays too fast for his own good, and when he tries to dip underneath, he just loses it. If that can improve, then man, he would be an absolute threat. Another example here. Looks like he was getting a lot of attention. You can see this tight end is tightly aligned. He's got the running back to his side. It seemed like more so he's the edge that they're trying to slow down for Buffalo. And this is on the final drive. Another quick foot fire. Boom. Throw the offensive lineman off balance. Ball's coming out super quick. And it looked like he was at least going to push Dawkins back into the face of Allen. But the ball comes out quick, and it was I believe this one was an incompletion. But he does a good job just forcing into the back of the pocket. Or he forced it out to maybe be a 3-yard completion. Can't remember exactly. But just forcing Josh Allen to play with a little bit quicker speed, because he was the one really getting after it. And it's not like I would consider this a pass rush rep win from Chop, but you can see the potential there with that first step off the ball, and then mixing it into, varying pace and tempo combined with, different footwork, hand usage, gets up underneath, then create a little bit of a push. So I think there's positive takeaways from stuff like that. He did have an offsides in this game. I would say that was a negative. It didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things because they changed 3rd and 14 to 3rd and 9, and they just chucked it deep anyway, so it didn't really matter at all. But that is something, I don't think it's a huge problem of his, but something to, I think take of note. Another ball out, coming out quick. I feel like if this is one of those plays where the ball is not just 3-step out, ball's out in literally 2 seconds, Chop probably has a pretty good rep here, where he fires off the ball, uses speed to power, but this time tries to win on the inside again. So it's nice to see him using speed to power, but instead of trying to open the hips of the offensive lineman outside, he's trying to attack that inside half more so. You can see the leverage and just look at him create a push there. He gets engaged. Look where he gets engaged right here. Dawkins gets pushed back into the quarterback. They get engaged right there, and Josh Allen is starting to release. As he's starting to release as they get engaged, and he still pushes him back into the face of the quarterback. So overall, pretty good game from Robinson. Got to give him credit. I feel like pass rushing, it was kind of where he was struggling. Like we knew coming in, he was more going to struggle more as a run defender. But I actually thought he showed some improvements as the season went on, and then he was kind of taken away as a pass rusher. The balance was a key issue. But these past 2 weeks, I felt much stronger when it comes to him, and I think that's kind of what you're looking at for at this point in the season. Dolphins are 2-6. You're looking for these young guys to come along. It's very important to the team's future success. I think Chop is one of the most important players to watch for this upcoming season because Dolphins are going to have a lot of needs next year on the defensive side of the ball, and if Chop can be like at least a solid starter for you, prove to be a solid starter, you feel much better about your edge group, and you don't need to put as much as a focus on it next year. So that's like huge, having some of these young guys be successful players so you can focus on other positions of need in the offseason. So nice to see his development. Hopefully it continues. He has a pretty good matchup in the Rams this next week, and I think they're going to have to rely on him to get some pressures, so it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And it was nice to see him do it versus Dawkins, who has typically played pretty well versus the Dolphins, and done a good job versus like Bradley Chubb, because that's usually who he would go against. So overall, good job pressuring, getting his first sack. So giving that type of credit. Wasn't like the rest of the defense pretty much had a bad game, I'd say, outside of like Ramsey. And then some of the D linemen did a decent job too. I think, holding up versus the run. I think Calais was pretty solid. But I think the rest of the DBs and the linebackers really struggled. But so if you guys really do, make sure that comment and subscribe.